The humble label has become so commonplace in society that perhaps we don't recognize the need for innovative upgrades and efforts to make the technology more efficient and effective. And yes, it is technology. Now, I recently had a yard sale and used those little red dots, to price items. The dots could be pretty difficult to peel sometimes, or they'd fall off the backing with a little prodding. They didn't stay attached to items we wanted to sell. They smudged during application. And then there was also, they weren't big enough or clear enough to keep every other person from saying, hey, how much is this thing? And I lost count of how many I lost and found in the garage and driveway in the days and weeks after the fact. My point being, labeling can be trickier than you might think. And that was just one family trying to sell a bunch of random junk that is unnecessary for them. Now imagine it being a busy QSR trying to peel and stick labels during a slammed lunch hour, properly marking delivery orders, ensuring that pre-packaged goods are labeled for safety and accuracy. Well, that's our subject today. This week we have Epson's Ian Livesay joining the show to talk linerless labeling. What are the best use cases? What are some problems that it actually solves? What does a liner-free label printer do differently? So we're going to make your business stickier with this episode. I'm John Martin, flying solo this week. Welcome to BlueStar Nation. This episode of the BlueStar Nation podcast is brought to you by Epson. Hey, you're going to hear some compelling use cases about linerless labeling on today's show. So, of course, Epson has you covered with their OmniLink TM-L100 liner-free label printer. The L100 offers extensive liner-free media support and features built-in USB and Ethernet, plus additional flexible connectivity options. You get peace of mind with a 1-year limited warranty. The L100 is also online order ready through Epson's Server Direct Print and offers paper-saving features and a label taken sensor. So if your customers need improved order accuracy and flexibility for linerless labeling, check out the link in the show notes to see more of the TM-L100 or contact the BlueStar Epson team to learn more. BlueStar Nation podcast is brought to you by Elo. Your customer's next POS upgrade just got cheaper. For a limited time, select Elo POS units are eligible for an instant rebate. Elo POS offers a 15-inch screen, 128 gig SSD, and 4 or 8 gigs of RAM. Other options include Celeron i3 or i5 chips, Windows or no OS, and various wall mount and stand options. Elo POS instant rebates range from $270 to $655 and can be combined with elite discounts. For full details, check out the link in the show notes, but hurry, this offer is only good through the end of 2025. All right, my guest today is Ian Livesay. He's a product manager for Epson America. Ian, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here talking about this subject, which I think some people are going to be surprised is more interesting and has a lot more to talk about than they think. But first, tell us a little about yourself. What's your background? What's your day-to-day like over there at Epson?
Well, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. My name is Ian Livesay, like you said, and I am the product manager for the thermal label printers that Epson provides. So those are we have a couple die cut printers, those versions, and also linerless, which I think we're going to spend most of our discussion on today.
Awesome. Well, so let's get into it then, because, I do think, again, people may not think about the linerless versus die cut and what all that means and why there should be applications there. And I kind of want to start backing up a little bit about, obviously, there's been a lot of changes in hospitality over the last few years. COVID did a number on the restaurant business and, what came out of it, what kind of innovations, it caused. And I just want to get a sense of where does the market currently stand right now? What challenges are still out there? What are QSRs and restaurants and fine dining and all them? What are they still searching for by way of solutions where we might be able to help them out?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I know if we go back and we look at COVID, I think a lot of these challenges that the restaurant has, whether it's, how do I retain my customers? How do I provide better accuracy? How do I do this, that, and the other has been the challenges for restaurants since the beginning of time, right? It's the same challenge, it's just the environment changes. And so COVID, I think, accelerated a lot of that need for change, and created some changing too, obviously. Mm-hmm. But now as we're in 2025 and we're past COVID, we're past kind of that different environment, I think a lot of it is still here though. We're still looking at online ordering, still looking at buy online, pick up at the restaurant, or delivery. All those those different activities that we saw during COVID, I think we all come accustomed to them, and it's a new standard now. And so it's something that's continuing to go. The reasons I think aren't so much out of necessity as it was at that time. It's more of customer preference,
right?
And in turn, I guess a restaurant's necessity to provide for the customer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we could argue that, a lot of this stuff was already on the docket or already heading in that direction. Some of it just got pushed forward and accelerated during COVID that we weren't necessarily
100%.
expecting at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a good thing too. It kind of helped us take that step forward and really get going in the restaurant space at least.
Yeah. It'd be nice if we didn't have to have a global pandemic to figure out how to move forward on innovations. Let's not try that again necessarily, but maybe we learned something from that. I will say from my experience, it does seem like some, especially in the QSR space, some of them are still better than others at doing a lot of these innovative things. I don't know if there was a dial back of all right, well, we don't have to do it out of necessity anymore, so we're just not going to put as much emphasis on it. We're going to still focus on the in-person dining, which is fine. But I also think, and I'm curious your thoughts here, that there's a not insignificant number of people that have become accustomed to the new way of doing things, and their expectation is, hey, I want to be able to order for delivery whenever I want. I want to be able to order and pick up and things to be ready when I show up there and to have everything clearly labeled and noted what's for me and my order to be accurate. Is that kind of what you're thinking too? Is that, maybe some of the stores, some of these restaurants and QSRs have not done a good job holding on to what they had to do during that time and are maybe still backsliding a little bit?
I think it depends for everyone, right? Every restaurant, if it's out of necessity, you're going to throw things together to get what you can. And I think now as time's gone on, some restaurants have some more opportunity to perfect or improve different areas, especially ones that are, maybe areas that aren't working so well. There's some time to get into it. And I guess you could argue the difference too, that there's no time to fix things and just kind of keep going.
True.
But something that you did say, just as the customer becomes accustomed to it, I was at an event where a gentleman was speaking about how customers want to go back to the old way too, and they don't like ordering at the kiosk. And so what does that mean? And so you see the different demographics of a younger generation who wants to do everything through their phone or at the kiosk and go through the whole item, and then you've got a different demographic who just wants to talk to somebody and say, hey, I want the number one with this, that, and nothing else. And here's my cash to pay. So, speaking with this gentleman, it was, I think what's coming now is that, okay, COVID accelerated everything, brought all this new stuff on, but there's still a very large demographic who wants it, more the traditional way. So how does a restaurant provide this flexibility to do both and to serve really all of their customers?
Yeah, definitely. There's a balancing act there for sure. Yeah. So then, go ahead.
I was just saying, just kind of going off that topic, just how something I think that we're still seeing and that we'll continue to see is just the personalization. So just, something as simple as having your name on the order or, and then obviously your order and how you want it to be with cheese or without cheese. And that's done through the kiosk, through the mobile app, I think is huge. Just everywhere you go, every restaurant has some sort of app, whether it's a third-party one or their own branded one, like the McDonald's app and the Chick-fil-A app and this, that, and the other. And even, 7-Eleven has an app now. And everyone's got an app just to keep you coming back to them for those deals, those personalized offerings, which, it's – I know I got a friend here who goes to McDonald's because I got free fries today. You want some? And just how do you get 99-cent drink and all this stuff? It's have to go through the app. It's oh well, that's that's how they keep their customers and really promote that loyalty. And I think that's something that is growing and it's just going to continue to grow and keep going.
Yeah. Well, then let's get into the labeling side of things, because I think, a lot of this front of house innovation that customers are looking for can be very much enabled by what's happening in the back of the house and how we're getting stuff labeled, how we're making sure that orders are accurate, whether it is for the person that is actually going out there and, and wants to just stand at the front counter and talk to somebody and give their order one line item at a time, or the person that wants to do it on an app or at a kiosk. So it's got a huge role to play, again, especially when you get into that delivery, pick up, to go, all that kind of stuff. But, and again, the idea of being accurate, clear messaging. So talk about the linerless labeling part of it, because that's the heart of what we wanted to get into here. Why is that maybe the way to go for some of these situations? What are some specific use cases? And when should we rely maybe on the more traditional die cut labels instead? And then, as we're putting all that together too, how does it solve some of those problems we were talking about earlier as well?
Yeah, so definitely a loaded conversation here, lots of different things. But as you mentioned, and we were just talking about, there's not just one way to enter an order. Getting a little repetitive here, but you're at the kiosk, you're at the front desk, you call in still. All these different ways that the order is coming into the restaurant and then back into the kitchen. And then again, different ways that it's going out, back to the customer, to the delivery driver, to the table, to, whatever it may be. So having where Linerless comes into a play there, being able to keep that organized, I think is just one, benefit right off the bat. This one's going to Northern Kentucky. This one's going to Long Beach. Let's label it to make sure that they're going to the right people and the right orders at the right time. I think that in itself, just with all the different ways of orders coming in, being able to organize that, and Linerless being a solution perfectly for that. I'm going to label this bag, label this order. And then on top of that, you get, okay, that's just the order. Let's get down to the items inside the order. We're just talking about personalization, all the modifiers and whatnot. Okay, well, this sandwich has cheese. This one does not. This one needs the gluten-free bread, so it's going to have to go to a different section of the restaurant where it's, not in that zone. And then you got drinks. And so the labeling you can really snowball it in a positive way and just really expand it to all the different sections of the order to make sure that it's 100% right 100% of the time.
I was doing a little bit of research on the idea of linerless labeling and what some of the benefits of it are. And there was a couple of things that I just had not really thought much about that I think are kind of interesting to explore and tell me if there's more that you can think of here too. But, obviously one is just the waste of the liner backing itself, which makes sense. That's, that's a product that you're wasting. And if someone's looking to be more efficient or more cost effective and, not have as much, trash they're making or whatever, that can be one way to do it. There's the idea of being able to put more labels on a roll, which I had not thought about that at all. But obviously, if you don't have to worry about the backing, that's just a little bit more space you can fill with the actual labels itself, which then apparently will save on freight costs. So just the idea of like how much it costs you to get, a box of labels sent to you could be a lot less when there's fewer on the roll and it's just not as heavy at that point, or there's more on the roll but not as much of the backing, so it's going to be lighter. And I thought the other one I thought was really interesting, and I don't know how often this comes up, but just the idea of those little backers being slip hazards. That if you're peeling a bunch of those off and tossing them on the floor, which we know how it is in a busy restaurant environment, anything on the floor can be a potential hazard. So even that's kind of thing you have to pay attention to. What are some are some of those things that when you do point out and talk to customers about them and they understand the benefits of the linerless part that really do make them go, I hadn't really thought about that, and change the way they think about what they're currently doing with labeling if they're already doing the die cut instead?
Yes, I think one of the big ones is that the benefits that you get from labeling an order, whether it's die cut or linerless, there's value there for labeling it. And so customers who are not labeling today, going to linerless makes sense. It's kind of the standard is what it is. And for many of those benefits that you also mentioned, the cost, being able to have more labels per roll, slip hazards and whatnot. So like we were talking about earlier, I was in Chicago last week, downtown, and we went to Mendocino Farms. And we made the mistake of going at 12:01. So the restaurant was, downtown Chicago is, it wasn't a tiny restaurant, but it was smaller. And the amount of people that were in there was unbelievable. Right. It was standing room only type thing. And it was all of the, customers like myself and our party that was in there. But then you also had all of the third party, the Door Dashers, the Uber Eats guys coming in waiting for their order. So it was just, I walked in, it's like, oh, why are we here? Like, there's got to be somewhere else. But it was like that everywhere. It's just lunchtime, naive on my part. But seeing that, just how busy that the restaurant was, the kitchen was just as busy. There was just as many employees and whatnot. So really kind of looking at it from that perspective, there's not a whole lot of room in the restaurant. It's busy, things are moving. and anything that we can provide to just help make that job a little bit easier. So even if it's you got all these different processes going on, and now I have to peel the label, that's one more thing I have to do. So going to Linerless, that's one less thing I have to do. And again, once I peel that label, where do I put the backing? I got to throw it away. And that's obviously, you could miss the trash can and go on the floor, and that liner paper on a slippery tile is not a good combination.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, we think about, oh yeah, no backing is slip patch. But if you go to a rush hour like that and you see the amount of people and the amount of activity that's going on in the restaurant, that's very viable, and I think it does play a big part there.
Yeah.
So again, in those busy environments, which a restaurant, there's downtime, but there's always busy time. That's guaranteed. And so Linerless in that regard just helps manage the chaos that comes with, a kitchen.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think that chaos is a big part of it too, is that, again, I think some people might think like, whatever, it's just peeling a sticker off of a backer. Like, how long does that take? But, again, when you are doing that, I don't know, let's say you got 100, 150, 200 orders during a lunch rush, over the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. That's a lot of labels to have to pull. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's potentially a lot of time you've kind of wasted doing that, and a lot of time that you are wasting that you're not getting on and moving on to the next order. And then on top of, like you said, if there's the trash element to it and you've got to stop and clean something up or fix something, or, a jam occurs in some way, and you have to worry about that. It's all those little things that can slow something down. And the goal is just to make them as efficient and fast as possible to get through those lunch hours. So folks like you that are standing in line thinking, why are we here? Maybe see things moving quickly and think, all right, it's busy, but they got it covered. We'll get our order placed and ready in no time.
Oh, and I should say, I mean, it was busy, but there were people coming and they were leaving just as fast. So it wasn't like everyone was just standing around waiting. It was just a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely.
They were moving.
So then let's talk about some other aspects of hospitality and maybe other industries too that could really benefit from Linerless. Where else do you see other use cases out there that maybe folks aren't thinking of? Maybe they're thinking like, all right, I get it for delivery and pickup and slapping a label on orders, maybe putting a receipt on a bag or something. Are there other places that you're seeing people use Linerless labeling that we may not be thinking of?
I think what's interesting is that a lot of those activities are in other industries. So you think of a retail store, buy online, pick up in store.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same, not the same thing, but it's very similar. That I've got a package, I'm going to order it online, I'm going to go to the store and pick it up. And multiple people are doing that. So now I have multiple orders at the retail store, whether it's a department store or like a pharmacy type thing. It still needs to be labeled with my name on it to make sure that I get the correct order. So I think we're seeing a lot of those activities that maybe started in hospitality, or at least got most popular in hospitality, or in the QSR space at least, start to creep into retail and creep in grocery and pharmacy. So it's starting. It's not at this level that it is at hospitality, but it's going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, all those things that we've talked about for the restaurant space and for QSR, the retail market is looking for the same things. How do we keep our customers? How do we make them happy? How do we make sure that our orders are correct? How do we prevent returns? How do we handle returns when we do get them? And so Linerless definitely has the space in that area.
Yeah, definitely. What about shipping? I think sometimes like that occasion when I have to go return something that I bought off of Amazon, and your local UPS store will take care of that for you. And I do see them sometimes still print out that label on, again, one that's got a backing on it, and they're peeling it off and slapping it on a box. And granted, if you're in there sometimes, it's not super busy. It's not a big deal. But I'm thinking of like post-holiday, or, right around the holiday time when people are buying stuff and realizing they've got to return it. And again, that's just one more place where things could maybe just go a little bit faster if you're pulling off a Linerless label instead of, the one that's got the backer on it. Is that an industry you've seen people start to use these as well?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say I'm a complete expert on the chemistry behind labeling and whatnot, but what I can say, and what I've seen, and I know others have seen it as well, is that in the past, and I would say traditionally, the reason you would use a die cut label is because the adhesive, you could go as strong as you want because you have that backing there.
Right.
But when you're linerless and it's coming through a printer, you've got that exposed glue going through the printer, and the printer can only take so much, right?
Right.
And so traditionally, linerless was always a much lighter or a lighter adhesive. But now we're seeing as the chemistries have evolved and technologies increasing that we're able to get an even stickier adhesive on the linerless labels.
Nice.
And so for some of those cases, permanent linerless is not so far-fetched as it may have been 10 years ago. And so we're starting to see that as well. And I know that in other industries, manufacturing and logistics, kind of more the factory setting, that linerless is definitely a trend towards that and moving towards that for some of those same reasons. The slip hazard, less weight to ship because you get more labels per roll. Mm-hmm. Even the mobile printing, when you have a printer, you're walking around the store and your roll can only be so big. So having linerless gives you more labels per roll. And so it's growing everywhere. And it's one of those things that you don't even think about it. And then you look around the corner, like, oh, okay, here it is. This is where linerless is coming in. This is where it can go. And I think it's for a lot of those same reasons, but expanding it to all the different areas and just, it's taken some time for the technology to get there, but it's definitely moving that way. And I'd say it's there in some cases already.
Yeah. To me, this seems like one of those situations where just a smart VAR with a little bit of, paying attention, just a little bit of, looking around, walking into your businesses, watching what they're doing, watching where they're currently labeling things and thinking to yourself, hey, is there an opportunity here to do something a little bit faster and a little more efficiently by going linerless instead? That's good stuff. I think a couple other random ones I was thinking of, food trucks, those can be just as crazy and busy during, a rush hour as a standard, brick and mortar QSR. Like I imagine they would benefit from that. And again, talk about a place with a small footprint where you don't want a whole bunch of backers piling up. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's another place I would want it. What about ghost kitchens? I mean, I don't know how big of a deal those are anymore. I know they were, popped off a lot during the pandemic, obviously, but I still see that they're out there. You'll see a lot of these like concept kitchens from like big restaurant chains or whatever that'll, tap into like a kind of a minor version or whatever that they're using like a ghost kitchen concept for. I would think that probably linerless would make that really fast and effective again, since you got a lot of delivery agents running in and out of those. Are those two other ones that you've noticed as well?
Yeah, food trucks definitely. I mean, it's the same, and with ghost kitchen, you're doing the same processes, right? You're taking orders and you're sending them out. Mm-hmm. Where are they going to? And even in, let's say, I made the argument, well, you got orders at the desk, orders from the phone, orders from online, different ways. Even if you just had one method coming in, if you're only taking orders at the desk, or only at the food truck, you're not doing mobile orders, you're still, someone's going to say, well, I don't want pickles on mine, or I don't want cheese on this, or I want extra cheese on this. And so it doesn't matter how big or small or how wide the range is, there's always a need for labeling. And I think you can make the argument that, whatever a ghost kitchen, whatever a food truck, whatever a retail store, whatever a pharmacy can do to help ensure that they're getting the 100% accuracy that they're aiming for, labeling is always going to have a space there.
Good call. All right. Well, we're going to let Ian talk a little bit more about how Epson approaches linerless labeling here in a moment, and then how they can help you go out and win some business. But quickly, before we do that, let's talk about what's happening around BlueStar Nation. Look, if you're struggling with the big questions around AI, don't worry, you're not alone. If you want to understand what your customers want, what's working, what's not, how to incorporate AI technologies in your own business, and tangible solutions that you can feel comfortable selling, that was the subject of our Solutions Summit, which was co-hosted by BlueStar and Intel at VARTech 2025. Now you can watch the summit online and understand how VARs and integrators can drive the narrative for AI solutions. The summit features guest speakers speakers from Intel and a panel exploring AI readiness and from the perspective of vendors, from ISVs, from distributors that are eager to help you go out and win this business. You can find the presentation by searching for Solutions Summit on the BlueStar YouTube page, or go down to the show notes and you'll find a link to watch it directly there. While you're doing that, take a moment, as always, to please hit the like button for this episode. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Leave us a comment if you have some thoughts. Maybe have you seen somewhere interesting where linerless labeling really popped off and made a difference? Let us know. We'd love to hear about it. Of course, make sure you're subscribing to us on any podcast platform where you listen to podcasts. And of course, submit your ideas to us. We want to know what you want to hear about on the show. What are some topics that you want us to get into that we may not be talking about already, or ones we haven't delved into in some time? As always, you can find us on the BlueStar LinkedIn page. Again, you can leave a comment wherever you see us out there on the web, or you can email us directly, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, Ian, let's wrap things up here and talk a little bit about how Epson approaches the linerless label printing. What are some key products that VARs should know about that you guys are offering out there? And then more importantly, how are you going to help them go out there and win some business and drive the linerless labeling narrative forward?
Yeah, of course. So Epson, we have a product line of linerless labels. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm the product manager over those printers. The latest and greatest is the TM-L100, which was built from the ground up towards linerless. So it's got a couple features there that help it support more aggressive media, as we're seeing the market's trend to more and more stickier paper. And also the connectivity that you'll see with Epson throughout its receipt line, through its kitchen printers. It's no difference there with our label printers. And then what's also nice about Epson, and just especially in the QSR space and hospitality, is that with the reputation that we've built through our receipt printers, it extends into our linerless printers, and we make it so that we can play just like our receipt printers do with the number of different systems that are out there. I know that BlueStar and Epson, we work with a number of different partners and customers, and how we're able to support the majority of those, and the ones that we haven't supported yet, we're happy to get on the phone and make those connections that are needed. But really the L100, and we also have the L90 series as well for some of the legacy customers, or even or help transitioning to some of the newer features of the L100. We have different resources to help make that available for our partners and whatnot, to help them make that transition smoothly.
Nice. Yeah, we always appreciate Epson has a very strong attitude towards partnership and building an ecosystem, whether you're an ISV, whether you're a VAR, just working with a lot of folks and working together to drive some solutions. And maybe a printer is a nice place to start to kind of build out a bigger solution around. So we always appreciate what you guys bring to that and what you have to offer there. And I like your point about being aggressive with the media and understanding like that. Hey, the needs are changing, and you guys are working hard and making sure that your printers are keeping up with that and giving that kind of flexibility that everyone needs to again, maybe to go out into some spaces that aren't the traditional QSR and still be able to offer this kind of technology. So that's great stuff. All right, well, let's wrap up as always with what's on our radar. This is where we get to talk about something in the world of tech, innovation, science, business, the news, entertainment, whatever we feel like chatting about today. Ian, I'll let you kick us off here. What's on your radar right now?
I think just AI has become a very common buzzword, in everywhere that we go, at different shows. I was at a show not too long ago, and they had speaker events, and I kid you not, every speaker event had AI in the title. It was AR for this or AR for that. So it's kind of like, all right, so where are we going with this? Is it getting too repetitive and whatnot? But something that came up just when I was kind of reading around on the internet a couple weeks ago is how they're using AI differently. Same type of approach. We'll see it. You're using it in your kitchen to detect, what's gone. I even read something about your home refrigerator using AI to tell you when you've run out of eggs and stuff like that.
Right.
But what I wanted to share is that I saw one for recycling, which I thought was pretty interesting. So, you send all your recyclables, this is done at the waste management type facility, but you've got different bottles, you've got, stuff that can't be recycled kind of going through a conveyor belt, and just how they're using camera technology and AI to decipher what's recyclable, what can be used, and just using that AI in a different scenario, something that I wasn't really even thinking about.
Right.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that actually, I find that very exciting because I always feel like recycling is one of those things that I make an effort to do. I try to be diligent about it, but then you start hearing these stories about stuff showing up at the waste processing centers and then being like, well, like 75% of this actually doesn't get recycled, or we have a hard time separating stuff out or determining what is and isn't or whatever. And kind of deflates you a little bit on the idea. It's like, hey, I'm trying to do something good here, and you're telling me that you can't really do much with a lot of it. So I would think that would be a great way to start helping them understand, like, what can and can't be used. And again, this is a positive, like you said, it's a positive use case for AI in a time when everyone's talking AI. And this is something we're big on too, is like, let's talk about the tangible stuff. Let's talk about real, honest places that you can use it, that it makes sense, that it's accomplishing something, solving a simple problem and doing some good. I like this one. That's a handy one. I appreciate that one entirely.
Yeah, and I'm the same way when I'm putting stuff into my recycle bin. I'm like, this actually going to get recycled or is it not? Is it the right thing? I don't know. So knowing that there's, obviously we're not the only ones thinking about that. Everyone's trying to do their part and whatnot. Right, but I think at that level, can farther down the line, and how we can use those different tools to actually make a difference. It's exciting, and it's something to, just kind of keep my eye out and see what develops from there.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about what's on my radar here. So in a interesting use case for, the idea of, did we really actually need this? And maybe we've gone a little bit too far with some of the ideas that we're putting out there. IKEA has put out a smartphone bed. So basically, this is quite literally what it sounds like: a tiny little bed that you build and put on your nightstand, and you tuck your bed into it. It comes with sheets and everything, pillow. You're just laying your phone down there for the night. It actually has NFC functionality built into it as well that will offer rewards for keeping the phone there for 7 hours a night over the course of 7 days. You get some cash back to use at IKEA. Currently, this is only available in the UAE though. And the other thing that I thought was interesting about it is it doesn't offer wireless charging, which to me feels like a huge miss. If you're going to have that kind of a setup, and have a little bed that you're sucking into, it should at least have the Qi charging in there, whatever, to charge your phone also. But I guess I do appreciate what they're thinking here. This idea of, I think, getting people to stop night scrolling and doom scrolling all the time, and grabbing your phone in the middle of the night and checking things out or whatever, that, hey, we'll give you a little incentive to tuck your phone in and leave it there all night long. I don't know that an IKEA bed was the necessary part of that equation. I'm not sure how useful that part of it is. And I'm sure it's probably not, as cheap as you would like it to be, but well, there it is. If you're looking for a nice way to tuck your phone in at night, is that something you would use, Ian? Would you feel the need to tuck your phone in at night? I mean, what kind of incentive would you need to stick it there for 7 hours a night and not touch it, and make sure that you did not touch it all night long?
Oh, when you brought that up, I actually thought smart bed, like my bed was connected, like it was a bed for me, and there was different things going on. And then you said that and tucking your phone in, and that's like, how does this work? But I do think, and I don't know exactly what that incentive that IKEA is offering, but you leave your phone away from you for 7 hours is a definite benefit. I mean,
oh yeah,
I'm very guilty of, I can't sleep, so let me look at my phone. Like, that's going to make me fall asleep faster. It's not. So I do see that, and I think that is something that, just with everything on your phone, like we were talking about today, you order everything on your phone, you do it all. You got your tiny little library in your pocket. I think having that time away from your phone is also very important, especially at night when you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, I agree.
I think, if anything, as silly as it may sound, it is, that's kind of catching our attention, right? Like, hey, you kind of need to leave your phone away for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I would actually use that, but,
that's what I'm thinking.
I'm not going to use it, right? So.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Is I'm wondering, like, what would that incentive need to be for me? Like, what would is it, I don't know, is it, free donuts or something, like, what would someone need to do for me to set my phone down? And honestly, the overnight thing, I don't think is as big of a problem for me. I tend to stick it on the charging pad and I'm done with it throughout the night. I don't tend to find a reason to pick it up. I make sure I put the do not disturb on so that I'm not, stuff's not waking me up. But I can see a benefit during the daytime though, like especially like when you're trying
choosing times.
Yeah, like if you're trying to focus on work or something, you don't want to get distracted by it. And granted, sure, you can make an effort to turn your things on your phone to do that, but if you told me like, hey, if you don't touch this for like 5 hours and just focus on your work today, I don't know, maybe I get an extra 4 hours off at the end of the year or something.
Now, does the bed actually block it? Because I know there's other companies out there that you can kind of
right
turn your phone off. Or
yeah, it doesn't seem to do that. Like from what I can tell, it's just just the NFC angle is just strictly for the app to track that you're not picking it up and scrolling on it. So there's not a lot there to it. Like, again, to me, if it was something that actually kept you literally from even getting notifications and then also did the charging too, I think there's an opportunity here that someone might build on it. Like, it feels to me that this is one of those things IKEA is just doing to more just for the kind of the social media kind of, little like, get a little bit of attention for this kind of thing. But I have a feeling someone might take this idea and run with it and turn it into something a little more interesting in the future. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah. But if you get, certain discount or promo with it, it might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's easy, just throw it in the bed and then rack up some points. I mean, that's not a bad idea either.
Exactly. And I guess you get the angle of having the cute little bed thing too. That makes things a little bit different too. All right. Well, that's what is on our radar this week. Ian Livesay, Epson, thank you so much for joining. Appreciated having you on the show today. We are going to sign off for the day. Until next time, go out there and get more aggressive with your media. Just put your dukes up, do a little bit of fighting. Yeah, get aggressive. And we'll see you folks out there in the nation.